Hi, folks. I am starting this episode out differently than I normally do, for reasons that will become obvious here in a moment. Yes, the cats are all fine. However, I have almost certainly been exposed to the coronavirus. You might remember the nursing home I talked about on a previous episode, where they had a number of people come up positive. Well, turns out the wife of one of my supervisors worked at that nursing home. Last Sunday, when I got to work, I noticed the cleaning crew was in there cleaning the facility, which was unusual. They don't work on Sundays. But, a week or so ago, management had said they're going to be doing extra cleaning because, they're kind of worried about people getting sick. And I assumed it was part of that. Then one of my coworkers says that our supervisor is going to be out for 2 weeks. It seemed kind of sudden to me that he would take vacation and not mention this prior to that. And then I called out work on Monday because my back was bothering me. It's no big deal. You call into work, you leave a message saying, hey, I can't come in. And then, you do whatever. Except for last Monday. The head of HR called me back about an hour later saying, what's going on with you? And I explained to her that my back was bothering me and, I figured I'd be in on Tuesday, which I was. My back was better by that point in time. And then at Tuesday work, somebody mentioned that our supervisor's wife worked at that nursing home that was shut down, which made perfect sense as to why he was suddenly on vacation, because they sent him home since they wanted to reduce the chances of somebody being infected by the disease. Never mind the fact that he's been working in our facility and talking to us for weeks now, so it's entirely possible he's an asymptomatic carrier, and we could have already contracted the virus from him. And then the other thing I noticed was that everybody who's a diabetic is not at work. Obviously, they sent them home because they didn't want them to be infected. Again, doesn't really help because they've already been exposed to the supervisor. What should have happened and didn't was they shut the facility down for 2 weeks, send everybody home, so they had, have a chance to see if we develop symptoms or whatever. But that's not what they did. And they didn't even inform us officially what was going on. It's just things you had to piece together based on stuff that you happen to know. Now, 25 years ago, I worked in a warehouse, which was considerably larger than the facility I work in now. And a supervisor there came down with tuberculosis. Day or two after he got his diagnosis, they had the health department in the facility there to explain what TB was, how likely you were to get it, etc., etc. You've had nothing like that at work, not even, and as I said, not even a formal notice that there was a, employee who had been exposed. And after all, if his wife worked there, she probably has it. And since, he lives with his wife, he probably picked it up from her. And there's a non-zero chance that he spread it to everybody at work and anybody else he may have encountered. So this has been a rather sobering time for me because I've had to think. We're atheists, so we don't get to pray to a magic sky pixie that we're going to be okay. We have to look at the facts. And the facts that we have are sketchy at best, unfortunately, except when you're dealing with Iceland. Iceland, having universal health care and a small population, is able to do something that I guess nobody else has done. They've tested most of their population. They're testing anyone and everyone who wants to be tested, and they've tested a significant number, percentage of the population. Their results show that 50% of the people who get the disease have no symptoms. So that means if you get it, there's a chance, it's 50-50 whether or not you'll have any symptoms. And I have looked, but I have not been able to find out what the breakdown is on the people who have severe symptoms with it in Iceland. We know that people who have underlying health problems tend to have a really rough time with the disease. Given that I'm an American who does not have universal health care, I have health insurance, but I can't really afford to use it, and I've had pneumonia, I'm at a fairly high risk of having a rough time of it if I develop symptoms. Potentially, given the fact of my age, that I've had pneumonia, that I'm a smoker, statistics aren't necessarily in my favor if I have if I have symptoms. But I don't know if I have it or not. I can't get tested because I have no proof that I have been exposed to the disease, because as far as I know, they haven't tested that supervisor. They're just quarantining him out of an excess of caution. And, without being able to get tested, I don't know. But I've had to do a lot of thinking. Because, if I end up in the hospital, I got 4 kitties that need to be taken care of while I'm in there. And it's that was Buddha that you may have heard chirping there a second ago. And, if I go in the hospital, I may not come out. But it's not a very easy thing to ask someone. Hey, will you be willing to go into a plague house to take care of my cats should I get sick? I am lucky. I have a friend who they're at a lower risk than I am, who has said that they would be willing to come in and do that. I also have enough food and things so I can leave out, if I have to go, I can leave out 3 days worth of food and water for the cats, which will reduce the risk of infection before a friend comes in to feed the cats and water them. I also have, fortunately, just happen to have gloves and a couple of N95 masks, and my plan will be to leave them outside along with some disinfectants, so that if my friend has to come in and take care of the cats, we can reduce their chances of being infected even more. And it's as I said, it's not an easy thing to ask someone, and I have been doing a lot of thinking, because we all know we're going to die. We just don't know when. And when you get a notice that, hey, it could be in as little as 14 days, it sort of changes your priorities about things. I've been futzing around the house and taking care of stuff that I've needed to take care of for a long time, and I've still got tons more to do, which I'm going to be doing in the coming days. But as you can imagine, this whole ordeal has left me not really wanting to edit the whole thing that Skullbeard and I recorded. I mean, it's actually good in the sense that there's a bunch of stuff we make fun of. Not good in the sense that it's entertaining to listen to. But, you know, I have to think about a lot of things and restructure some things in my life. That's all there is to it. I am still going to keep doing the podcast. I don't have, but I will be making some changes to it, I'm sure, as a result of this. And one thing I've discovered is that the online stores are all out of cat food. Or at least the kind Fuzznuts can eat without throwing up everywhere. I've been doing my best to isolate myself since I found out that what's going on with the supervisor. But unfortunately, the online stores don't have the cat food that Fuzznuts eats. So I have had to go to the store to get that. But I did get a big-ass bag that should last me long enough. Well, it should last me 14 days. Whether or not that's, and that still doesn't mean I'm out of the woods. Because I'm an essential employee, I'll still have to go to work. And who knows what the people I work with are doing. I still could get exposed that way. But, until we come up with a vaccine, or we break the back of this pandemic, it's going to be a nervous bit for me. And knowing that I've encountered somebody who almost certainly was exposed, it kind of focuses, your mind. I will keep everybody posted as things go along. Not daily, of course. But, I mean, if you follow me on social media, you'll see posts from me, I'm sure. But I will have an episode out next Sunday. I'm not sure what it'll be yet. It kind of really doesn't matter. A couple of more things, then I need to get out of here and get to bed. The first is, if something happens to me and I wind up in the hospital and don't make it, you're not going to hear any more from this. There's, in theory, I can have the friend who is going to feed the cats upload the stuff for a final farewell episode, but I don't know if they'll be able to do it. I don't know if I'd be able to record such a thing. But otherwise, I will keep doing this. Again, I think you can understand why I need a little time off. Because I have things I have to do. I have to get my thoughts sorted out, because it is sobering. Knowing that you've been exposed to the deadliest pandemic we've seen in 100 years. And knowing that there's not a goddamn thing in the world the fucking government's gonna do about it to fix this problem anytime soon. Okay. So I will leave you with a couple of happy bits here. You're not entirely depressed with this news. The first is that so far I'm not exhibiting anything that could be considered symptoms of the disease. So maybe I'm asymptomatic, or maybe I was lucky and I did not contract it. I don't know. The other thing is, when I was cleaning around here, I found a church bulletin that I had saved, and it dates from 1987. Now, at this point in time, I was a non-believer. I wouldn't say I was fully on the atheist scale of things. I thought it might be possible that some other religion was true, but I had given up on Christianity at this point. As I've mentioned before in the podcast, I gave up on Christianity when I was in church one time, and I was sitting there and they were reading from the Sermon on the Mount, and they started talking about divorce, and I was like, Jesus says divorce is, if you divorce a woman, you've committed a horrible sin, and if you remarry, that's adultery. And I'm like, well, my parents are divorced, and they're better off for it. My girlfriend at the time's parents were going through a divorce, and I'm like, her and her mother will be better off once the divorce is finalized, because my girlfriend's father was a raging asshole. Why would you force somebody to be in a marriage like that? And then, and I also thought, our church has no problem with divorce, and we're hearing the words of Jesus here. We're not hearing the words of some disciples, so you could say, well, maybe it got wrong, or, copied wrong, or whatever. We're hearing the words of Jesus, so if we're not buying, if the church isn't buying the words of Jesus, then obviously it's bullshit. And then, they read the section where Jesus says, if you look at another woman with lust in your eye, you've committed adultery. And I'm like, well, that's pretty much how biology works. We're hardwired to be that way, because it encourages us to reproduce. And at that point, I was like, yeah, I'm done with this. But anyways, to get back to the church bulletin, they had on the back of ours, and I guess other churches do it as well, I don't remember, it's been so long since I've paid attention to such things, or been in a church really, but they have this, this message on the back. And while I was sitting in church, and this was a common habit of mine, I would rewrite it a little bit. So, let me read to you how I redid this one. And it was originally entitled, We Have God's Word. I changed it to, We Have God's Money. We cannot see or hear or touch God, but we can rest in God's money. Heaven and earth will pass away, said Jesus, but my money will not pass away. Christ has given us the money of God, and he will never withdraw it. God's promises are sure, for we are God's bank. The greatest treasure of the church is cold, hard cash. Here we have the money of God. Here we have the living dollar, Jesus Christ. Money, said Luther, is the cradle bearing the Lord. From theological seminaries to nursery classes, the church seeks to spend God's money and allow it to take root in the hearts and minds of the people. The money is the heart of the pulpit, the core of Sunday school and confirmation instruction. It is balm for the dying, the roadmap for the living. To be able to spend all that money is the earnest prayer of every Christian. To keep God's money is not to own it. Important as it is to have it checked to see if it is counterfeit, pure cash is no guarantee of a pure credit rating. To keep money is to trust it and live by it. When John says the cash became credit cards and charged among us, he directs us beyond nickels and dimes, beyond tens and twenties, to big cash donations. Jesus told us to search beyond small change and added, "It is the big cash donations that bear witness of me." Faithful as we may be to money and to creeds, it is money that holds us captive. We may never own all the money of God, but we can try. This must have been what Jesus meant when he said of his disciples, who yet could not have understood much about prime rates and IRAs, "They have kept thy money." God's money is our great heritage, sang Luther. It is indeed. All right, I'm going to get out of here, get this thing edited, and then posted, and I will talk to you, hopefully, next week. And everybody out there, stay safe and stay at home if you can.